Guys, I was joking when I said this. You weren't supposed to take me literally. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the Fast franchise. There was a time, yes, when I was a fan of these movies. I liked some of the earlier ones, and I still do. But back then, despite all the crazy stuff they did, they still had their roots somewhat planted in reality. They do some really absurd things, but when it was time to get serious, they got serious. They showed you they still had their feet on the ground, and then the crazy stuff was just icing on the cake. And it was fun. There was a balancing act there. And that formula worked for a long time, but as time went on and the movies got crazier and crazier, and any connections they had to reality got more and more tenuous, and they really started playing fast and loose with what should and shouldn't be possible, that's when they lost me. So I figured the franchise was just not for me anymore, and I didn't bother seeing the last couple movies. Of course, back then I wasn't doing all this. Now I have to see it. So having missed the last few installments, I have one question before I dig into this thing. At what point did the Fast saga become a parody of itself? Was it around the same time they started calling it a saga? Because there might be a precedent for that. There are moments in this movie that I enjoyed. Most of the comedy lands pretty well, there are some flashbacks that aren't bad, and generally the first 15 to 20 minutes I liked because that was when the movie felt like it gave a crap about itself, but once you're past that point, it has zero shits to give, and it's cartoon logic and cartoon physics all the way to the end. Any connections the film had to reality are out the window now. And that's a problem because when the movie isn't rooted in anything anymore, the cake is gone and all you've got left is the icing. And sure, everybody loves the icing, but it's not a meal. Ludacris in these movies plays a character who's very analytical and science-based. I know. And when they do something crazy, he'll say stuff like, "It's all physics. If we just follow the laws of physics, we'll be okay." And that's really baffling in a movie that treats the laws of physics like something it wiped its ass with. Every single person on the team, and even one or two who aren't, should have died in this movie at least 3 times. But spoiler, they don't die. They don't even get injured. And all you need to do is watch the trailer to know how weak sauce that is. And I understand the movies have been going in this direction for a long time now. Since 4 or 5, they've been getting a little more ridiculous each time. But these characters can only cheat death so many times before it all starts to feel like bullshit. Like, one of the funnier moments in the movie is early on, when it looks like someone's dead. By all rights, they should be dead. But then, miraculously, in defiance of all comprehensible logic, they're absolutely fine. Another character is all, "How the hell are you still alive?" And the dude is just over here like... See, that's funny, because they're being self-aware about the fact that they keep surviving this shit when they really shouldn't, and they're poking fun at it. But once you've done a bit like this, you need something serious to balance it out, to show the audience that the stakes are still real, and they don't have that. Instead, it becomes a running gag that these people never seem to get hurt. And it's still funny for a while, but less and less as you realize they're acknowledging that they know this whole situation is batshit, and they just don't care. And once you've crossed that line, everything in the movie becomes a joke, most of which are completely unintentional. That's why I say we're in self-parody territory now, because one of the things this movie delights in doing is taking things fans of the franchise have been joking about for years and turning them into major plot points. They do all this insane stuff and never seem to die. It's like they're superheroes or something. Well, guess what? That's not a joke anymore. It's one of the major themes of this movie. There's literally a scene where the characters talk about exactly that. Hey guys, have you ever wondered about how we've spent years surviving the most nightmarish, terrifying stuff you could possibly think of and walking away without a scratch, when really we should have all died like 10 times over by now? Guys, I think we might be... You think I'm kidding? I wish I was. But as much as this is intended to be played for laughs, that character is basically proven right by the end of the movie. Because no matter how much psychotically dangerous shit these characters get into, no one ever dies, no one ever gets hurt, you never even think that anyone's really in trouble because they all act as if they expect to not get hurt. And they're right! And that works once or twice as a gag. But if it just keeps going after that, storytelling-wise, you've kind of screwed yourself. For years, fans would joke about how these movies were getting so crazy that eventually the team was going to go into outer space. Well, when that actually happens, and that's in some of the trailers, so it's not a spoiler, when that actually happens, in the most laughable, cartoonish way imaginable, it's like, what am I even watching anymore? This franchise has lost its mind. There are no stakes, everyone's invincible, and it's impossible to care about anything because the movie has spelled out for you that when no one can die or even get injured, nothing that happens really matters. Dom can get into a fight with 20 dudes at once and win the fight. Characters can fall off a 100-foot building, crash land on a car, and walk away like they didn't even feel it because the car broke their fall, and landing on a car is like landing on a million fluffy pillows, apparently. And then, when you go so far as to take one of the only really meaningful deaths in the entire franchise and undo it, bringing that character back, completely glossing over how they're not dead anymore, nothing you do is ever going to be taken seriously again. Not that these movies ever were that serious in the first place, but at least you could pretend for a while there. You can't pretend anymore, so you might as well forget about all the serious stuff and just make these things straight up comedies from now on. In fact, this movie works best when it's trying to be a comedy. Most of the time, the stuff that's supposed to be funny is funny, but the filmmakers seem to be under the impression that on top of that, they still have something meaningful and profound to say about family or whatever, and dudes, we're way past that now. Really, what more can you say about family with these movies that you haven't already said? You bring in John Cena as Dom's brother, I guess because that was the biggest FU to The Rock Vin Diesel could come up with, and Cena does fine. Does he look like Dom's brother? No. Does that matter? No. He's good with the action stuff, and his acting is pretty serviceable, but it all just feels like a retread of stuff that was done a lot better in the earlier movies with characters like Brian and Hobbs. And that's made worse when you realize that this is just gonna keep on going. Because at the end of the movie, they have the perfect opportunity to wrap up and close the book on multiple characters, which would make sense because what else can you really do with them at this point, showing that there's still an actual story being told here, that there's some kind of progression, not just continuation, but instead they all just strap on their plot armor, magically escape danger, and zoom off to fight another day in some half-baked setup for more sequels. But I don't know how that works after you do what you did here. How do you reintroduce real stakes after you've shown the audience that the stakes have become meaningless? Beats me. The only thing left for them now is to do even more ridiculous stuff and hope the audience won't mind turning their brains off for another 2 hours. You know, once upon a time, you didn't have to do that with these things. I don't know what happened here, man. I used to like these movies, but this doesn't feel like Fast and Furious anymore. It feels like a knockoff franchise trying to copy Fast and Furious without really understanding what made it work in the first place. And look, I'm okay with not being the target audience for these movies anymore. I really am. If you go into Fast 9 knowing what to expect, that it's just a big dumb spectacle full of big dumb stuff that you really shouldn't think about too hard, just wanting to sit back and chill for a few hours, stuff your face with popcorn and laugh at all the absurdity on the screen, you'll probably enjoy yourself. But for me, as tasty as the icing is, I miss the cake. And I feel like the cake is long gone now. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about Fast 9 down below. And while you're here, ding that bell icon and follow me on social media so you'll always know when I upload new stuff. I also have a live streaming channel now. The links are down there. And don't forget to thumbs up the video, share, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to fall off a 10-story building and have their fall not be broken by landing on a car is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, but I'll be back with more soon. So stay tuned for that, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time.